my name is Kayla Cooper, and I'm with Flower Girl Blanks, and I make blanks out of flowers, real flowers. And my website is flowergirlblanks.com. And yeah, okay, so I'm gonna get started here. So for the purpose of this video, I prepped some completely clear blanks so that it's easy for you guys to see. So basically, you have just your normal blank, right? All right, and so then I have drilled this out and I've done nothing to it, okay? So this is where I would take the compressor and blow out all the sawdust that's inside. But if you don't have a compressor, you can actually use those keyboard sprayers, you know, that sprays out the dust. You can use that as well, and it just spritz out the sawdust on the inside. And when you do that, you actually don't realize how much, like, it doesn't look like a lot, but there's a lot more dust and stuff in there than what you realize. And so why it's important is because, number one, it's going to give you a foggier, murkier looking, like, I don't know, end result, and that's no fun. But then two, there's a very small amount of space that you have to work with as far as, you know, between the tube and the drilled hole. So you don't want anything extra to, you know, impede you being able to glide it in there without it ripping off the paint that you're gonna paint on the inside. So hypothetically, say that I spritz out with some air. The next step is I just take a Q-tip and some denatured alcohol, and I'll always do that. And so I'll just take this, you guys see that? And I'll clean out the inside. I don't know if you guys can see how clean that and clear. Can you guys see the difference in that? And so that's kind of step one. And so this dries pretty instantly. And so you think that would look great. Yeah, it looks great, but we're going to take it to the next level, and we're going to use some thin, it's very important, it has to be thin CA. I always use Mercury, everything. I don't sell it. I'm not sponsored by Mercury, but I really like their products. And so on the other end of the Q-tip, I'll just saturate the end of the cotton swab thing, and go around. Now, can you guys see the difference even then? And so, yeah, number one, it makes it completely clear, so that way the paint looks very smooth and flawless on the inside. But then, you know, doing that with my blanks, it kind of acts as like a little sealant, so that way the flowers don't absorb the paint color. And so that's why I think that this step is very crucial, because there have been times, you know, before I, you know, learned through trial and error on what works best, that, you know, over time you would see that it had soaked in, you know, as it was drying. Does that make sense? And so I find this, you know, part very important. And so then I'm gonna put that aside. I don't want this to stick to anything. I'll put it on top of this. Okay, oh, good grief. And so I always take some accelerator, just spritz it in there. This is like, I bought 2 cans of this because I'm out of it, but I spritz it in there, okay? So this is completely ready to go. And so what I've done is I've made this little dowel thing, okay? And so I'll put the blank, and normally my blanks are square, so they won't fall through, if that makes sense, but I'll put that there. And then I'll take the tube, and I didn't bring any sandpaper, but I'll rough it up, and then I'll stick it on one of the dowels, okay? And so the next step here is I use high heat. It's important that you use high heat spray paint. And I think that as long as you use whatever colors that they offer, you'll be good to go. I haven't really tried a lot of the other brands, but I've had lots of success with this, so why change it, you know? And so what I'll do is I'll just spray the inside, then I'll turn it over. Okay, and so now you see that it's white on the inside. And then, okay, so for the tube, it is very crucial that you're not being too heavy-handed. So I don't want to get it on this tablecloth, so I'm going to kind of do it in the air. But I just, see, you're just enough to where it's not, you don't see the brass. I don't think it's getting on the tablecloth. Let's set that there. Okay. So just do that all the way around. You guys get the point. I don't want to get stuff on the tablecloth. But you only do one coat on that, very light, okay? So after this dries, maybe an hour, you know, just as long as it's dry to the touch, I actually do one more spritz on both sides, and then I leave that to completely dry overnight. That's just what I have found works the best, unless you know, you're doing this at 8 o'clock in the morning, you know, first thing. You can probably get away with doing it and finishing it out and gluing in the tubes maybe around 5 or something like that. So I have one that I've prepared that it's already white, it's dried and all that. And so I'm going to move on to the next step here. Then I've got my tube that I also have already let dry and everything. Let's set that there. Okay. So I put on some gloves, and what I like to do is oftentimes I'm working on a surface that I don't want to get epoxy on. And so instead of using like a paper plate or something like that, I just use 2 strips of painter's tape because it makes the cleanup so easy, and it's super cheap to have to do it this way. All right, and so I'm gonna use the Mercury Epoxy. Again, this is the 15-minute. I prefer the 15-minute over the 5, just to give me a little bit more time. I don't need that, but thank you. And so I'm just going to push this, this is brand new, so it's kind of taking some elbow grease to get it out. Okay, so this is the resin part. Now you want this to be as close to even as possible. But if you were to decide, you know, on one having a little more than the other, you want the hardener to be a smidge more if, you know, you end up having more of one or the other. But try to get it as even as possible. And so I make sure to not put it directly in it, so that way I can really see, you know, how much I've poured out here. Okay, so now I've painted the inside of the blank. I've painted the tube. And so for triple protection, I just take some white mica powder and I mix it in the resin side, not the hardener side. And so I'll just take a little bit. This is probably too much because I didn't put that much on there. And then I'll just kind of like mix that around, because then it's going to make, you know, our glue white, which is what you want. Okay, and then I'm just going to mix all of it together. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have seen these, but there are different sizes for every pen kit that there is. And so these are called tube gluing plugs. And so it really helps to keep the mess at bay as far as like getting glue and stuff everywhere. But it also makes it really, really easy. So you're gonna put the T-handle in on one side, and then the stopper, or I don't know, the end on the other side. And so I'll take and smear the glue all over the tube. And then I often will like I put some on the end of it as well. Just what I do, works well. So then you put the whole thing in there, and I twist as I'm pushing it in there, okay? And sometimes that way you're really getting it good and covered. So you're gonna pull, and you're gonna pull. Oops. Well, normally this comes out a lot easier. There we go. Okay, so if you have any other, there's actually nothing on that side, it's just on the end. And there's nothing, there's no glue at all. Even though I had some trouble getting that out, there's no glue on the inside of the tube at all. So that's amazing. And so then I'll let that dry. Again, I'll let it dry all day or overnight, because you don't want to put all this work, one, pay for the blank, put all this work into prepping it, just to get in a hurry, and then when you go to turn it, it ends up, coming unglued from the blank. That just is bad news bears. So, yeah, that's what you do there. Normally I have some paper towels, to clean this all up. But when I'm all done, the cleanup is super easy, because then I can just pull up the tape and wrap everything up together. Now you reuse these, and then you're kind of done. So, yeah, but what makes this work so well is that, especially with my flower blanks, if you do it just how I showed you, when you push in the tube into the blank, it's going to be very seamless, just like this. But if you get too heavy-handed on the glue or on the spray paint or anything like that, it's going to scrape off the paint as you push it in. So that's why you don't want to get too heavy-handed on that, because there's just not a lot of room that you have to work with when you're doing that. So yeah, I think that kind of covers it. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you do any, I know you do the stopper blanks too. Do you do any prep work to cover the threads?
Yes, so thank you. For the threads on that, because I've tried painting it, and then as soon as you it just scrapes off. So what I do is I will take the compressor, blow out the sawdust, and then the DNA, and then the CA. And that way it's completely crystal clear, and then it looks intentional when you see it through the blank. Because if it's muddled at all, it looks like an afterthought, and you're like, oh crap, it's not supposed to show. But when you really take the time and clean it out nice and stuff, it looks intentional. And I've never had anybody, be like, oh, why is it showing? You know what I mean?
I do have a question. Can you ream those blanks out afterwards? Like the drill press and usually what we have to do, because we don't have one of the T-stops. There's usually glue in the tube, and we have to use a reamer to ream it out and then level it out so it's all flush with the pen tube.
Okay.
Can we do that on those ones?
Yes. Okay. So yes. So her question is if you don't have the pen tube plugs like this, can you use the reamer? Is that what they're called? Yeah. I haven't used those in a while. With the what's the other part of it called? Barrel trimmer, yes, that's it. And so you can still do that method on this. What I do, and it is a game changer, is that I have a long, thin, it's a lot thinner than this, but it's a round file, and I will file the inside where if there's any glue that got in there, and it's so fast. You don't run the risk of the reamer, whatever it's called, being too thick inside, and then it making the the bond, do you know what I'm saying, come off, because then you're kind of back to square one. You got to figure out a way to get that tube out because it's messed up your finish on the inside. As far as like the paint, you're going to see where it's shifted, even though it's still all white most likely because you've got 3 different layers of prep. You can still see. I should have brought a pen that I've made that has that, but it still looks okay, but it's not ideal. It's not ideal. Yeah. So
now, so how do you get it flush with the top of the tube then?
Okay, so I have from Harbor Freight the punch set, and so it's a bunch of like little metal rods. They're like this big, and they come in a variety of sizes in this little kit. And so I'll take my Jacob's chuck on my lathe, and I'll stick whatever size I need. I won't, if I need like something for a really large pin kit, I will make sure to get the really large like punch, because if you use one that's too small, it will not work as well. But basically, I'll match the size, and then where on this end of the lathe, I have a rotating disc sander, and so I will have that on, and it's like 80 grit, and so I'll pull it up to it, and then I'll just like barely touch it to it, and then it completely levels it off. It makes it completely square, so when you're assembling it, you don't have it to where like some of it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Exactly what you're doing.
And so that's why it's important to make sure that the punch size is the correct one for the kit, because if you have one that's a really large drilled hole with a tiny little thing, it's going to tilt that just enough to where it's going to make it look like this when you're assembling the whole thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So I know there is a guy who like makes some of the stuff that I just described because I got it from him, but I'll have to get with me and I'll look up who it was. But who was it? That's it. Yes. Yes, and you can get all of that at Speakeasy, as well as my blanks. So yeah, but Speakeasy, they carry the pin tube plugs, and they carry Mercury, and they carry my blanks. So they have it all over there. Do what? Yeah, so it makes it, I mean, doing it that way, like taking, I think that's probably one of my like best things that I've upgraded to, as far as like, some things you can kind of get away with not, having a special jig for that special thing. But that is hands down kind of a must. If I ever, get another lathe or whatever, I've got to have that. So, yeah.
After square your blanks up, do you go back and seal the ends if there's any flowers or clothes?
No, because whenever you go and do your CA finish at the end, I will then put it back on the punch and then put it up next to the sander again. That way, if there's any tiny little edge that of CA that like. Does that make sense? Because it's going to not meet up flush with the pin kit parts. And so I'll do the same thing. So after that, I will take some thin CA, because if you do medium, it's going to not soak in. It's just going to kind of sit on top. And then again, it's not going to line up flush with the rest of the pin parts.
Is CA what you recommend to finish your pens?
Oh yes, 100%. So, and then if you do, let me finish. I just thought about something. If you put some CA on the end, take a Q-tip and just put a little bit of CA on the Q-tip. And what I do, so that way you have your finished, it's already got CA on it, everything. And if you do this, it's going to drip down the side. So I do this, so it doesn't drip down the side and mess up the CA finish that you just did, and you're gonna have to like redo it. I haven't done that by experience, I don't know. But, just something I thought of. Okay, so as far as any hybrid, whether it's my blank with flowers and wood, or, something that has glitter, or something that's just like colored resin and wood, I find that the best, finish is CA. And so, there is a little bit of a learning curve on how I finish my pens with CA, because as you turn them, they are going to have voids because the resin can't penetrate inside of the middle of some of the flowers, because, it's impossible. And so on my website, I have a link to a video on exactly how I fill in the voids, the techniques that I use, and then and how to make it to where, you can do a complete CA finish within 10 minutes, even on one of my blanks. And so, if any of you guys want to do that in the one-on-one room, just let me know, and I'll be happy to show you that. Or, if you are on a tight time schedule, then you can just go to my website. Anybody else have any questions?